All right, each week we do something called a community moment. It's kind of a thought for the day, an opportunity for a member of our own community to come up, share with us something in 10 minutes or less. It could be something you're thinking about, a book you read, or your own personal journey to free thought. Today's community moment is going to be given by Lew, who has been a member of the Oasis community for a very long time. He's given many wonderful community moments. Do we have a count on how many Lew community moments we've had? It's got to be in the hundreds. 30 or 40? Okay, I vastly overestimated it, but it's a lot. And his title today is There Ain't No, which means there is, Canals on Mars. I'm excited to hear about this. Let's welcome Lew.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Okay, I've been reading a lot about myths recently, and when I read about one, whether it's Bigfoot / Sasquatch or Loch Ness Monster or whatever, what goes through my mind is, how did this ever start? So this particular myth actually hung around for over 100 years. Unlike a lot of other myths, we now have proof that there aren't any canals on Mars. But for over 100 years, that's what everybody thought. Okay, kind of a personal connection between me and this myth. It started in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is up near the New Hampshire border. It's also about 20 miles from where I grew up. Lowell's is named after Francis Cabot Lowell, an important figure in the Industrial Revolution. By the 1850s, Lowell had the largest industrial complex in the United States. In 1860, there were more cotton spindles in Lowell than in all 11 states combined that would form the Confederacy. That's what Lowell looks like now. That's the Merrimack River. The state has built a state park within the confines of this complex that you can visit. It's pedestrian friendly. You can walk in the mills. There are docents who will walk you through it. It's a very interesting place to visit. If you're ever like leaf peeping in New England, take a trip over to Lowell. You'll enjoy it. Okay. This whole thing about canals on Mars started with Percival Lowell, who was a scion of the Lowell family. He was a very accomplished mathematician and astronomer. The poet Amy Lowell was his sister. His brother Abbott Lawrence Lowell became a president of Harvard. Percival traveled extensively and wrote a number of books on the Far East. Determined to be prepared for the Martian opposition in 1894, when the red planet grew closest to Earth, he decided to build an observatory. He chose Flagstaff, Arizona. Anybody here been in Flagstaff? It's a neat place. Now, he chose Flagstaff because it has a high elevation, as much as 6,900 feet, has a nice thin atmosphere, and even now, there's not a whole lot of industrial pollution in Flagstaff. So, for those of you who have been to Flagstaff, I'll do a little public relations thing here for Flagstaff. It has a real cool natural history museum. It has an extinct volcano. Anybody here walked amongst lava after it has cooled? Yeah, lava is the spookiest stuff you can imagine. And if you go to Flagstaff, you can go to this extinct volcano, and the park rangers will lead you through the lava, or you can take off on your own and walk through it. It's a gateway to the Grand Canyon. I visited the Grand Canyon about 3 or 4 years ago. I stayed in Flagstaff, and I found out how much there actually was to do in Flagstaff. It's a gateway to Sonoma. It's a half-an-hour drive. It's also about a half an hour from Williams, Arizona, which is the gateway to the Grand Canyon, and it's where Percival Lowell built his observatory. This is the way the observatory looked when Percival Lowell built it, and it's the way it looks now. It has not changed. So if you visit, you can go in, you can walk through it, you can look through the telescope, you can talk to the experts about it. It's an interesting place to visit. That's our friend Percy over there on the right. Well, through his observatory, Percy thought there were canals on Mars, to the point when his assistant said, no, there aren't. Guess what Percy did? He fired him. So, those look like canals to me, and that's what Percy thought he was seeing on Mars. He wasn't, but that's what he thought. Percy and his drawing. So the question is, why did Percival Lowell swear up and down that there were canals on Mars? And if I didn't mention it before, this myth persisted for well over 100 years. It's what everybody thought there were canals on Mars. Well, the existence of canal-like features was definitely disproved in the 1960s by NASA's Mariner missions. Mariner 4, 6, and 7, and the Mariner 9 orbiter in 1972 did not capture images of canals, but instead showed a cratered Martian surface. Today, the surface markings taken to be canals are regarded as an optical illusion. Psychologist Matthew J. Sharps has argued that perception of the canals by Lowell and others could have been the result of a combination of psychological factors, including individual differences, Gestalt reconfiguration, and socio-cognitive factors, one of which is cognitive dissonance, which a few of us have talked about here. Okay, so here comes the kicker. Part of the Lowell's family wealth derived from investments in the great canal systems of the eastern United States. Get any idea? That's a map of the canals in Lowell. So you think this may be where he got the idea there with the canals on Mars? What do you think? Okay? Obviously, he had canals on the brain. Okay. So, do I have a minute or two left? 2, okay. So, I have a question for you. If you were Percival Lowell, or even it was you, and you were on Mars, and you had Percival Lowell's telescope, and you were looking at the Earth, and you were looking at vast regions of Spain, or the Mojave Desert in Nevada, which is where Las Vegas is, you would see canals, or you would see what you thought were canals. What would you be looking at? Anybody? I'll give you a hint, it's commercial. Pardon? I'll show you a picture. Commercial solar panel installations. They're all over the world. Some of them are just laid out by rows. And if you were on Mars and you were looking at those with Percy's telescope, you could think they were canals. So let's not be too hard on Percy. Thank you very much.